Okay. Hello, everybody. We have lots of people joining. So thank you very much for joining. So yeah, hopefully all of you can see and hear me. If you're having any problems, feel free to put a message in the chat. If you can, and if everything is okay, then it's just a matter of welcoming you to the first of the series of Exeter Community Energy webinars that we're calling Wise Up for the Energy Transition. We're starting on home ground for ECO with solar power. I'm Andy Extance, currently the chair, also kind of in charge of marketing at ECO. The idea of this series is that we'll provide useful information to everybody, whether you've got no starting knowledge about technology involved in the energy transition, or if you have lots. So on that note, I would like to start with a poll to work out how much the people we have here know. So can you please click on the option that best represents you on how much you know about solar power. While you do that, we'll have a little bit of housekeeping. So we're recording this to put it on YouTube so that others can watch it later. So if you have a problem with that, please notify me now, either in the chat, or you may well be able to unmute yourself if to make a comment if you want to. But in general, it would be good if you can remain muted unless there's something very urgent to say, so whilst everybody else speaks. Okay, let's have a little look at, there are more people still joining us. So, I will wait for people to join, and whilst they are, so yes, welcome everybody, especially including those late goers. This is the ECO Wise Up for the Energy Transition webinar on solar power. We're starting with a little poll on how much you know about solar power. Hopefully you can see that. If so, please vote. If you're having any problems, do message in the chat window. Okie doke. I will just give it maybe another 10 or 20 more seconds. Okie doke. I think I'm probably the only one who hasn't voted, so I'll end it now. Okay, so actually, we've got a lot of people. Right, I will share that. And we've got a lot of people who already know a lot about solar power, including 12 people who already have it installed on their house. So I may well call on you later on to share your experiences of solar. But like I say, the webinar is intended to include everybody, including those who know nothing or a bit. So to move on, the lineup this evening will start with Ollie Gibbs, Renewable Energy Site Surveyor at Sungift, who'll talk us through the basics of solar and some considerations about putting solar panels on your house. Then we'll have Alastair Mumford, Eco Director and Energy Manager at Devon County Council, who'll tell us about the Devon Solar Project, which is helping people get access to solar panels more cheaply. Then we'll have Sonya Bedford MBE, Eco Director and Partner at Scown and General Stalwart of the Community Energy Sector. She'll tell us about community solar power. And then we'll have Isobel Morris, Policy Analyst at REA, which used to be the Renewable Energy Association. She'll tell us about the status of solar power in the country overall. That will take us up to maybe 30 or 45 minutes through, and from there we'll be open to Q&A. I think some or all of our panelists will have to leave after an hour, but I'm happy to carry on a discussion for another 30 minutes or so if anybody wants to. I'm also happy if people want to ask questions in the chat during the presentations, and perhaps we'll see them and cover them in the main discussion, and then come back to them later. Okay, that's enough from me for now. I will hand over to Ollie, and he'll tell us all about rooftop solar.
Hi there, everyone. My name is Ollie. A little bit about myself first. I work for Sungift Energy, based in Exeter, and I tend to kind of, main part of my job really is looking after the residential sort of design team there at Sungift. So that's batteries, that's solar, that's all the bits and pieces that go with solar systems. So I've been doing that for about 6 years now, and yeah, learned from the best over the years there at Sungift. We've got lots of experience, obviously. We've been going for about 15 years now, I think. So lots of knowledge and lots of people to learn from. So I'll try and share a little bit of that with you today. I had sort of tailored this a little bit more to people that know nothing about solar. So I might have to change a little bit of that. It looks like a lot of you already have solar on your house and know quite a bit about it already.
I'm getting messages saying that even the people who already have it might not know all that much. So
cool. Okay. Well, yeah. Hopefully you've got it and have made the right choice. So I have to be careful about what I go through here. But I think what I'll do, just to start with, I think for those of you who don't have it on your house, know a little bit about it, I'll probably just go over sort of things that perhaps to be aware of if you're considering getting solar, or perhaps changing your system slightly, or what the options. So I guess kind of probably where we start is who should do solar. Most people probably think I'd say everybody, but I guess there's a few scenarios where perhaps it might not be a great idea, and that probably, if you're not sure how long you're staying in the house, I think that becomes quite a serious consideration. There may be the potential of moving in 2 to 3 years. I think solar is starting to add value to houses if it's done properly. So perhaps you might recoup what you spent on it, but maybe there are other things that might sort of take priority. So I think for solar to work for most people, and solar and batteries especially, it has to be sort of looked at as a long-term energy solution for your house. So if you're stable and settled in a property, then it'll pretty much be right for you. And obviously, especially if you're using a lot of energy or thinking about or have adopted an electric vehicle, it just becomes more beneficial in every way. So there are various different types of install you can have, and we'll touch on each very briefly. So you have your standard on-roof system, which is pretty much what you see most places. What I mean by an on-roof system, that's where the panels are mounted above tile level. Perhaps nicer looking systems will be the in-roof option. So the in-roof options are typically done on new builds or for people re-roofing. Great time to do an in-roof option. I would say probably the benefits of an in-roof option are you do save a good chunk of money on the tiles, not having to tile the roof. And also it's, apart from the aesthetics obviously, there is also the wind loading to think of. The in-roof systems, if done properly with the right kit, typically stand up to wind a lot better and you won't get much noise. I live in Exmouth at the top of a hill at the end of the river, and when it's about 70 miles an hour, I don't get an awful lot of sleep. It does funnel under the panels sometimes. It has to be really, really windy to make noise, but that's definitely one benefit of an in-roof system, is that you can reduce noise. There are ways to reduce the noise on an on-roof system. You can put things like solar skirts around the array to protect against wind, but yeah, so in-roof systems, they are for re-roofing houses and for new builds really. It's a big cost to have a lovely roof already, strip all the tiles off, put panels in roof and then re-tile. It's not, wouldn't really advise it. And then I guess the other one, which seems to be quite popular at the moment, is ground mounts. The big benefit of the ground mount is you can change the angles of the panel, and that's really important for when it comes to the winter. Sun being lower in the sky, you can adapt the angle of the array to suit the seasonal changes So you're making the most out of every month, as opposed to having a set angle. It just does what it does. With the ground mounts, you can, for example, you'd have it at 60 degrees in the winter and fairly flat in the summer, then you'd gain a huge extra amount of generation. So I think for those people that are thinking about having solar, and also for those people that have had solar, this is quite important. You need to know your roof tiles, and you need to know how those should be fixed to a particular roof. The MCS governs the solar industry, but they don't really enforce or kind of have proper rules as to how about the fixing should be done. It's obviously very hard to check a roof after the solar panels have been installed. So with the best will in the world, it would be a pretty difficult thing for them to do. So they do spot checks, but basically you need to know what is suitable on your roof in terms of a fixing method. So you obviously have various different tiles. You've got your slate roofs, you've got your concrete tiles, you have your flat roofs, and then you have your things like steel profile sheets, the box profile sheets, and zinc roofs. So the most common obviously going to be concrete and slates, and obviously the pan tile, the rosemary tiles as well. So I guess kind of concrete tiles to start with. Let's start with those. They're easy. You can't really go wrong on a concrete tile. You push the concrete tile up, it will expose the rafter underneath. The bracket bolts on that rafter, and then you can just run the rail across the top and install the panels. It becomes a little bit trickier where you have slate involved, and also the pan tiles, because you have to make sure the brackets are properly flashed so that there's no leakage. We do see a lot of older systems where less reputable installers have just drilled through the slate straight into the rafter, and then mounted the panels on top of that. So people have holes in their slate. To start with, there'll be a bit of a rubber grommet, but that wears out over time. And we are starting to see a lot of people come to us with issues with their roof where panels have been installed properly. So know your roof, know how it should be done, and quiz your installer on how they're doing it. That's probably, if you take anything from this, the best advice you can take away. Quiz your installer on how it's being fixed to the roof. Okay, so roof fixings, there's loads of different brands out there. We use a manufacturer called K2 Fixings. They're a little bit more expensive than most, but we to date not had issues. So yeah, tend to stick with them. There's many out there on the market, from cheap to expensive, and you do get what you pay for with those. I think one of the other things when you're looking at a solar system is who is advising you on what to get, and how experienced are they, and are they bothering to do a design for you? Are they looking at shading? I find a lot of people don't realise they have shading, and it's because they don't have big trees in front of the house or things like that. But not all shading comes from big trees. You can get shading from chimneys, you can get shading from soil pipes, things like that on the roof, even open skylights. So there's all that to sort of think about. I'll try and share my screen. This is probably going to go wrong. And see if I can just open up on my computer a screenshot of what I mean by design. So if somebody can wave at me, if you can see that, can you? Yeah, perfect, cool. So this is what I mean by design. We typically kind of put the panels on the roof where we think it's suitable, and we can actually run a shading analysis to determine how shaded each panel is, how much that, as a percentage, how much is that affected by shading characteristics. So this roof's actually shaded by quite a big tree, but also at certain times of day that chimney will shade some of the panels there. So that's really, really important, because only once we do this, and only when people do this, can you actually work out what inverter to use or where to put the panels. you know, I think there's an argument that this panel at the bottom right here, shaded by, you know, 80, almost 20%, is it worth having a panel there? And sometimes if you need a completely different inverter technology to make that panel worthwhile, then you may as well just not have the panel there. So that sort of thing is really important, and perhaps this panel could be moved up to the top, for example. So make sure, if you have a system or you are getting a system, that go over kind of how the people designed it, because old systems may be better designed if someone just had a look at them again. And it's important to kind of, as you're kind of getting into this, have a think about your roof, have a think about where chimneys might shade it, soil pipes and things like that. The one thing when we design a system is we're always asked about the panels. What panels are the best? The simple answer is there is no best panel. The best panel is the one that's most suitable for your roof, your budget, and how much you need to really be generating. So I think probably to try and simplify this, I could go on for ages about panels, and I'm sure I'm already running out of time. But as somebody who is looking to get a system, you can't really go wrong with, there's about 5 manufacturers where I don't think you could really go wrong. You've got LG, they're obviously very common, everyone knows who they are. SunPower, traditionally a very good module. You have JA Solar, you have Q Cells, and you have Panasonic. You can't really go wrong with any of those modules. In roof panels, you're probably best off looking at someone like Viridian Solar. They do a very good purpose-built in-roof module. It's with in-roof systems, you usually have 2 options. You have a plastic tray put in your roof that you can put any of those other panels I mentioned into, or you can do a purpose-built in-roof system. The plastic trays are not great. They are designed to meet a budget requirement as opposed to a long-term solution on your roof. So yeah, doing in-roof properly would be with a proper bespoke in-roof panel. Yeah, those manufacturers, LG, SunPower, JA Solar, Q Cells, Panasonic. The reason I've chosen those is they kind of tick all the boxes, and what I mean by all the boxes are that there's a few things, 3 main boxes really. You have your performance, how well they're made, and how bankable is the warranty, because they almost all offer similar sorts of warranty. LG offers the most bankable warranty in the industry, and almost all your panels are going to come with 25-year performance warranties. That's only any good if that manufacturer stays around for 25 years, otherwise it's a pointless piece of paper. They all have very bankable warranties. Panasonic, LG, they're recognizable names. JA Solar and Q Cells are one of the largest cell manufacturers in the world, so you're always fairly safe with them as well. And each of those manufacturers probably offers its own unique, I guess, kind of USP if you really to kind of look at it. I was going to talk about data sheets of panels, but I think probably that will take a little bit too much time.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good summary there, Ollie. Yeah. I think in terms of getting onto the solar panels, I think that's, if we come back to things like data sheets, I've clearly learned something there from what you've told me already. I hope everybody else has as well, in terms of both shading and the panel brands, so that's great. Hopefully we can come back to things like the data sheets and inverters and import and export and all those kind of considerations. But I think on the note of solar panels, it might be a good time to hand over to Alastair, if he's ready, and talk about Devon Solar together. Hopefully we have some people here who are interested in getting some, and it would be interesting to hear at some point how this might work with kind of what solar Sungift does as well. But yeah, I will hand over now to Alastair.
Everybody, and apologies for any noise. My youngest daughter is having an annual bath, and I don't think she seems to be enjoying the experience, but I think she's just starting to calm down now anyway. But yeah, Alastair Mumford, so I'm a volunteer director at XT Community Energy, and I also work for Devon County Council. delivering low carbon projects and developing and delivering low carbon projects. And one of it is Devon Solar Together. So it's just an opportunity really just to raise the profile of the project with you. It might be suitable for you, it might not. Obviously for the 45% of you who've got PV on your roof, it won't be. But the project is an initiative, is a company called iChooser, who are a Dutch company that came up with this idea for doing with solar PV, but it's been used in other ways, of a reverse bulk auction. So in other words, to promote solar PV to a community, to get a number of people interested, to then go to the suppliers and get the best price for that number of people that are interested, and to then support them through that process. So hopefully by bulking up a number of interested customers into one group, they can get a cheaper price from the installers themselves. So that's the premise, and they've done it in London through the Greater London Authority, and also I think it's Sussex or Suffolk, so I always confuse those two counties, and it seems to have gone well with them as well. So Devon County Council, we just thought it was a good opportunity to try and raise the profile of PV. We're not expecting loads of installations to come through this, maybe 800 across the county. That'd be great if we could, but it was just a great opportunity just to remind people that PV is an appropriate technology. Even though we haven't got the feed-in tariff, it can still stack up, and I'm sure Ollie would agree with that, and all of you who've got solar PV, and I've seen some of the comments, some of you are obviously saying that it's saving you money. So the scheme has now been launched, so you can register your interest on the website. So if you just Google Devon Solar Together, you'll find the iChooser website, and then you can register your interest. That, as I mentioned, that would all get pulled together, and then later on in the year there'll be an auction to get a supplier to do that. In terms of who that supplier will be, iChooser have got quite strict processes for it. Obviously we can't tell them you've got to use a Devon supplier, although we would like to do that, we just can't. So they've gone through organisations like the Solar Trade Association, the Renewable Energy Association, and the Renewable Energy Consumer Code to raise the profile of the opportunity, and people like Sungift will then obviously get back with their prices, or whether they can meet their specification. So they've got a minimum specification, a sort of standard quality standard installations and so forth, and all the installations will have to have a warranty on the power output for 25 years. In terms of sort of once they've collated the information, they'll go to whoever the chosen supplier is. That chosen supplier will come up with a price, and then that will be provided to the homeowner. There's no obligation up until that point, so you can look at that price, look at the scheme that's been designed, go through all the checks and balances that Ollie's been giving us, and if you want to go ahead, you can go ahead. If you don't have to. There's no reason to go any further. So that's probably about it on the scheme. In terms of sort of potential cost savings, I think when we've always they don't like, iChooser don't like to commit to a percentage, but around 20% probably in the east of England. Manchester was the other area where they did it. They were looking at a 37 to 32% discount on prices. So yeah, it could be a sizable reduction there. I think the support that they can give you through the process, that might be useful for you as well. But you know, Devon has got a load of really good suppliers out there, so I wouldn't say this is the only way to go by any means at all. In terms of interest so far, I think we've had the figures just came out actually. I think we've had, oh, that's the wrong report, but there's about 600 people have registered their interest so far. The vast bulk of those in North Devon for some reason. And North Devon have gone ballistic about it. I don't know why, but I think there's about 120, and the rest were in tens and 20s. But so yeah, so that's the scheme. Have a look on the website. Obviously, more than welcome to get in touch with myself through Exeter Community Energy or through Devon County Council, and I can send you some more information. But hopefully, it will be of use to some of you, and as we all want to see more PV on roofs if we can. Thank you.
And so hopefully you'll be, or the iChooser or Devon County Council will be asking the kind of questions that Ollie has just been kind of flagging up that you know, people need to be aware of in this kind of bulk buying idea.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping all of our, you know, the residents will be knowing the stuff to ask as well. It'd be really great for that level of knowledge. But yeah, we've looked through the standards that iChooser are asking of the installers, and they seem fair for us. You know, it's not getting down to the level whether the panels are from one of the companies that Ollie mentioned, but yeah, we're fairly confident that it should be enough. It's robust enough.
Okie doke. Great. Well, thanks, Alastair. So we can pass on to Sonya, who will talk about community energy. I think we do have plenty of people who already know in the audience, but hopefully it will still be news to some, and hopefully you can kind of tell us some of the latest happenings on this front as well, Sonya.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Andy. And yes, as Andy said, my name is Sonya Bedford, and I'm a renewable energy solicitor. So by day, I deal with contracts in relation to any renewable energy installation, anything from financing to installing contracts to looking at the land agreements. But you'll be very pleased to know that tonight I'm not going to run you through any legal implications, but of course if there's any legal questions that you might have around installing solar on your home and how that might affect your property, or if you're considering or you have a lease of solar already on your home to a company, then I'm happy to answer questions. But I just wanted to really just give you a short overview on community energy and community solar in particular. I'm one of the founding directors of Exeter Community Energy and a community energy addict, I suppose. Community energy gives you the opportunity to take part in renewable energy in some cases, if you can't do that on your own home. I don't have solar on my house. I rent my house, and that's made it more difficult for me to partake in actually doing an installation, although there are some new ideas coming out and ways of, if you are in a rental property, how you can encourage your landlords to perhaps look at putting solar on. Community energy has been around for quite a long time, and by community energy I mean a community being a town, a village, a city, groups of people getting together to do renewable energy installations and to share the investment in that renewable energy installation, and then generate a return for the community from that installation. I've been working in the community energy sector, which is about 14 years now. Originally, community energy groups were set up to own wind turbines. And then when the feed-in tariff was introduced 11 years ago, the viability of solar to create not only a reduction in fossil fuel energy use, but also to generate a return through the subsidies that were being offered were real accelerator for community energy groups to get involved and to start looking at projects of their own. And in that last 10 or 15 years, last 10 years since the feed-in tariff was introduced, we've seen a huge number of community energy groups forming to take solar energy forward. This chart is showing the very latest solar installations which are operated by and invested in by communities. And as you'll see from this slide here, solar is by far and away the largest segment of that opportunity for communities. And there's a number of reasons for that. Solar is an easy technology to deal with. Unlike wind, it doesn't really create an emotional reaction when you try and install it. It fits in well with its environment on a rooftop. And it's fairly well known and well understood technology, and it's pretty straightforward. As I said, it's less controversial, and planning permission, if it's required for larger installations, is not seen as particularly controversial, and generally it gets passed. I can talk a bit more about ground mounted, which is slightly separate, but that's mostly for rooftops. And it did have a very steady stream of income from the feed-in tariff, so it was offering a really good solution. for communities to get involved with. And also one of the real benefits of community solar is that it actually helps the occupier of the building on which that solar is installed. So for example, with Exeter Community Energy, these were the very first 4 sites that we did 5 years ago now. It seems amazing that they've been up and running for 5 years. And what you'll see through the Exeter Community Energy rooftop installations is that in the main, they're on either community buildings or local businesses and people who really use energy and can do with the energy savings that they receive from the solar install that Exeter Community Energy has assisted with. Mumford and Community and Learning is a fantastic example of money which has been saved from a community solar installation, and which has provided more than just reduction in carbon emissions. It's also given them an income. We've got Exeter Central Library there and Greatmore House as well. Those were all our first solar installations. And when Exeter Community Energy launched its first share offer, and as we have found throughout all of our projects, we had great interest and managed to raise the money that we needed very easily for all of the solar installations that we've done. We're actually on to our 4th round of solar projects at the moment, but these first 3 ones that we did all benefited from the feed-in tariff, and the latest 2 sites that we've done, Beacon Community Centre and West Bank, have both installed now and are pretty much complete, and they're certainly generating well for their occupiers. The next phase is slightly different because we're moving into a world where there is no feed-in tariff and there is no subsidy for putting the solar installations on. So we're really focusing very hard on buildings that have high energy use, where we can make the most benefit and where we can sell that electricity to the building occupier and ensure that we can fully finance the projects by having that energy use. Just a little bit about some other community solar projects. I'm involved with 5 other community energy groups, all of whom have solar installations. And it doesn't have to be a city centre or a commercial building. It can be a church, it can be a village hall. And here's a picture of Sungift doing the install on, starting the install, which is now fully complete, but it just shows on my local village hall, which is in Wedmore in Somerset. And this was a really interesting project because Sungift installed a small solar array, but also quite a large battery in the village hall as well. And this was run by the local community group, and it's working amazingly well. The village hall is really well used, and the battery enables the benefit of that solar, the clean solar power, to be used in the evenings when the hall was before we weren't allowed to do theatre productions anymore, and community groups is used and saving an awful lot of money. And it's very easy to run, and it's a Tesla battery that we've got in the village hall, and it's quite exciting. You can see on the app when you're using solar from using electricity from the solar, when you're using it from the battery, or when you're taking it off the grid. So it's very easy to see how green you're being. This is our Wedmore community solar farm just up the road from me, and this is a ground mount installation which a lot of community energy groups have also owned and been involved with. Exeter, being a city centre community energy group, hasn't yet managed to develop a ground mount solar, but there's certainly hopefully opportunities in the future. And the real benefit of the ground mount solar systems is, as you can see, they can coexist very well with agricultural land and can have a number of uses. The Wedmore community solar farm generates, and it's a 1 megawatt solar farm, generates a community benefit fund of over £30,000 a year, which goes back into the community, so and helps them fund grants. So there's so many benefits from doing that. And this is one of the largest community energy organisations in the country, Bath and West Community Energy, and this is some of their ground-mounted arrays, but they also have a large number of rooftop installations as well. So community can be big or small. And it doesn't really matter what you're doing, as long as you can make that work for the end user and financially for the investors as well. So that was, oh, there's my, me in a wind turbine, very inappropriate. So that's my whistle stop tour of community energy, but I'd be very happy to take any questions when we go to the panel session. Thank you.
I'm muted. Okay, so thanks, Tara. That's great. And yeah, really good. And I think there's a lot to learn from all the different community energy groups. Have got a lot to learn from each other, and I think you do a great job in connecting all that up. So, and I think 190 megawatts, was it? I think something across the country. That's a pretty impressive number as well. So, but now I think Isobel will kind of take on that theme and put that into context more broadly, I think. So.
Yep. Hi, everyone. I'm just going to share my screen. Here we go. So I'm Isobel. I am a policy analyst at the Association for Renewable Energy and Clean Technology. Hang on. Usually this works just fine for me. Oh, there we go. Yeah. So I think I'll walk you through some of this quite quickly. So we represent a really wide range of organisations in the renewable energy and clean technology sector, including around 100 companies working in solar. And I thought I'd just take you through some basic facts. I think a lot of you will know these already, so I won't go through all of them. I've got some costings on here. It does vary quite a lot in terms of the size that you go for. Some people just want 1 or 2 solar panels, and that doesn't cost very much. Whether you include a battery as well, you can get this rather exciting piece of technology now called solar roof tiles, which are quite subtle and look very pretty on your roof. As Ollie said, the roof direction makes a difference, roof space. And there is a new thing called the Green Homes Grant, which the government has recently announced. And solar photovoltaics for electricity are unfortunately not included in the Green Homes Grant, which the industry is obviously quite unhappy with, but solar thermal is. So you can get solar thermal panels installed on your rooftop and use that to actually heat your home. And I've gone through the pros and cons. It's quite advantageous in the south of England, where many of you will be, particularly just because of the geography. You've got the long lifespan of solar panels. They can add value to the property, as Ollie said, depending on the circumstances, and combined with the battery, they can use the extra day at night. And coming forward now, we're finding that if you have an electric vehicle as well, a lot of charging products are being designed to actually integrate with solar in the home. And in the policy landscape, yeah, the solar thermal is included in the Green Homes Grant, and that can help you get money off the installation. And you've got, through the smart export guarantee, you can sell excess power to the grid. And here's some examples of the smart export guarantee tariffs. Although it does look quite small, and it can be quite a small amount of money, it ranges quite a lot in terms of the supplier, which deal you'll get. I've just got some sample ones up there for I think for a 16 panel installation, you could maybe expect about to earn about £100 a year from it. And the cons of solar are very much that you've got the initial upfront cost, and it does take quite some time to recoup. Again, it depends on the installation, but you could be looking at the full lifetime of the installation to recoup the cost. And you've got the cost of the inverter replacement, any annual cleaning costs if you can't do it yourself, and any repairs. And of course, it's weather dependent, and the location of the roof and the size depends how much dictates how much energy it will produce. And then if you want to have a battery as well, that a battery can quite often cost round about between £3,000 and £6,000 or £7,000. And then you've got issues with supply chain sustainability and ethics. So most solar panels are manufactured in China. There are some toxic products used in the manufacture of solar panels, and we don't really know how all solar panels are produced in terms of worker ethics and so on. But overall, the carbon cost it's still a carbon reduction overall. And still better for the environment. And in recent years, there's been less government support for solar, so the feed-in tariff closed to new applications, and the government increased the VAT rate on domestic solar and energy storage installations, which has had a bit of an impact on the industry. It went up from 5% to 20%. Meanwhile, coal for use in the home is still discounted at 5%. Bizarrely, and you know, that was a real shame that went through. So in terms of looking forward for solar, we are starting to see a wider kind of governmental recognition that we have to be promoting policies that help people to help themselves live cleaner lives, and to save money and on bills as well. And we know that we're going to need to drastically change our existing housing stock to reach net zero. So a lot of people, I think people often think about, well, we've got to reach net zero by 2050, but we know, and that lots of new housing will be built in that time, but we know that around 80% of buildings that will be around in the UK by 2050 will already be built now. And that means that to get those houses to net zero, housing is a huge, housing and heating homes and electricity for homes is a huge source of our emissions in the UK. And so solar is a massive part of bringing that down. And looking forward, there are proposals for solar and energy storage to be included as a minimum standard in new homes through the Future Homes Standard. We're hoping to hear something more on that this autumn from the government. That was an option that was put out in a consultation last year. Still waiting to hear the outcome of that. Obviously, it's been a bit delayed by coronavirus. We've got the Green Homes Grant, which does support solar thermal installations, and the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, which is coming forward. Details of that have not yet been released, and that's expected to be around 3.8 billion. If the Green Homes Grant isn't included within that, which it may well be. The Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund was announced in the manifesto put forward in 2019, and the Green Homes Grant is a COVID stimulation, so it's not yet clear how that will be costed. We've also got better research and development and investment going into battery storage in the UK to improve both the sustainability of our system and also to lower the cost as well, because obviously transporting heavy goods like that, it adds to the cost. We've got new technologies coming forward to improve the efficiency of solar panels, which are currently actually quite low, converting from sunlight to the electricity itself, but that is going to improve over time. And we've got more calls from government, industry, charities, and much wider public recognition that actually we need to change the sustainability of our society, and that we have a long way to go and we need to do it now. So there is a lot of pressure starting to be on government for how can they change. And I think COVID has kind of done two things. It's slowed it by shifting the focus to something else, and at the same time it's also made people more aware that we can change and we can afford this investment because we have to do it. And so yeah, and I think there's better self-regulation of the industry as well, and there's lots of positive things ahead. There are limits on solar at the moment, but I think the future for the landscape is looking very positive, and that's it. Yeah.
Brilliant. Thanks, Isobel. That was full of excellent detail in a very short period. I think you've done a great job. But yeah, and I think you're right. I guess it never really struck me before the importance with the buildings that we're doing now for the 2050 target. I think that's a really striking point. So thank you very much, and thanks to all of our speakers. So I'm happy to move now to Q&A. So I hope the audience has some questions, especially if you know, it's the kind of thing you've never asked before. Okay, it looks like we have a first one there from Mark to Isobel. Can you see that? I'll read it out anyway, just in case anyone can't. Isobel, how does the future homes standard compare with the withdrawn sustainable home standard? That sounds like it might need a little bit of explanation.
Well, we don't really know yet is the answer, because the future home standard, there were two options for it outlined in the autumn, and the consultation, the government's response to that consultation and its final decision haven't yet been published, and it could change quite a lot, both as a result of COVID and just due to the consultation responses. So as yet, I think it's currently unclear. It will also depend on the government's financial situation and on the investments and the incentives that they choose to provide to the industry. Sometimes, you know, if they give with one hand, they can take with another, or they might decide that they need to be tougher. It's difficult to know.
I may have missed, you may have mentioned that and I may have missed it, but what exactly are these things?
There was a proposal to include solar and energy storage in the future home standard, which would have set a minimum standard for the energy efficiency and the general energy efficiency, including insulation and solar and energy storage. There was a proposal put forward last year, and that would have, one of the options for that was to set solar as a minimum standard for future housing. It wouldn't have had any effect on housing already built, but and there wasn't a clear date outlined for when it would come into effect. But yeah.
Okay, so yeah, that would be I think that would be a great thing, wouldn't it, if there were a minimum standard to have solar on all of the new built houses? But you know, I guess it sounds like that's not necessarily the case, or?
Well, we just don't know, because they haven't published the response to that consultation yet. It is an option. It could happen. The industry, of course, very much would like to see that happen, but there'll be others in the industry who don't want that to happen, or more in the construction industry and so on. So yeah, we'll see.
Okay, that's fascinating. Anybody else want questions? Feel free to turn your video and mic on if you want to actually speak to us. That would be very welcome, and have a bit more of an actual discussion. I have a bit of a question for the panel. I don't know if it's one for Ollie. Like Sonya, I mean, I've partly got involved with community energy because we don't have solar panels on our house. I don't think we use a great deal of energy, and I wonder, kind of, you know, we get our electricity from a renewable energy supplier, Ecotricity, and you know, I wonder, like, do you see a great difference between kind of doing that or kind of generating your own with solar? I don't know whether anyone on the panel has an answer for that.
I think some of it's going to come through satisfaction. It's a bit like growing your own vegetables. You go to a you know, a nice farm shop where it's all organic, but I think it's still more satisfying if you're growing your own. I think you've got to take every individual case on a case-by-case basis, and if you're not using huge amounts of energy, solar can be quite an expensive route to running solely from renewables. And if you can trust your energy supplier to genuinely be, you know, supplying you with renewable energy, the problem is the energy coming off the grid to your house isn't renewable energy. You just, yeah, so technically you are using dirty energy still. Some of it might be clean, If your neighbour has solar panels, it probably is already clean, because the energy from those solar panels won't all get used at that house, and it'll go to the nearest one on the grid. So
looks like Alastair had a comment on that.
Yeah, I was just saying, no, Ollie's right. And, you know, the Committee on Climate Change has said we need a quadrupling in renewables to meet our net zero targets. That's a lot of ground mount solar. That's a lot of wind turbines. So really, we need to use as much more appropriate services as we can, which is what everybody's roof is. You know, if it's orientated correctly, it's absolutely perfect in terms of generation capacity. And I think, yeah, when you're getting it from the grid, you know, we lose so much energy moving it around the country. It's just completely inefficient. So not only is it nice to be, you know, satisfying to be generating electricity on your roof, it's just very efficient as well, notwithstanding that solar PV does have some, is quite low in terms of generation to size. But so it needs to happen. And I think, you know, potentially as more people are going to be working from home, we're going to see that midday use increase, you know, or more granular around an area. It won't be centralized in urban locations. And I think there's a few people on this call that have been involved with the Energy Local initiative, which ex-Community Energy is involved with in Devon County Council. But with that, it's trying to set up a system whereby you can sell your excess generation to people around you. So your next door neighbour could buy electricity from you at a given rate. And using the Energy Local model, that would mean that actually you're going to get energy a bit cheaper, and they're going to get a little bit of money for their income as well. So that can be really good. And we're also with Devon County Council, we're trying to see if we can set up some kind of local supply tariff as well, so that again people could do that. But Energy Local seems to be a really good model, and we're hoping to demonstrate that at some eco sites very soon.
Excellent. Well, we've got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll go with Tony Cooks first. I don't know if you want to ask it yourself, Tony, or shall I ask it? You able to unmute?
Well, either way, really.
Go for it.
Okay. Yeah, I think community energy, airspace leases and power purchase agreements, they were generally 20 years when the feed-in tariff was 20 years. But I'm just wondering, now feed-in tariff's gone away, is ECO looking at 25 years or maybe even 30?
Well, yeah, I mean it's a good question, and there were three reasons why roof leases started at 25 years and then moved down to 20, and that was the three reasons why feed-in tariff leases, I should say, not necessarily roof leases. One was that, as you say, the feed-in tariff originally was for 25 years for solar, that moved down to 20. Also, the warranty for modules, as Ollie mentioned, tends to expire around that sort of period, although actually when we first started doing solar, we were lucky if we got 5-year warranties on modules. And then in larger installs or ground mount installs, planning permission generally was time expired to 25 years as well. So that was fitted a standard for what we're doing. Now what we're saying is that no, we're not limited in that time scale. The solar modules will continue to generate electricity well beyond their 25 years, even if that is at reduced capacity, and they will still be very useful after that period. So what we're definitely seeing longer leases, and with regards to the power sales, then yes, you can do power purchase agreements for as long as you like, although in the industry, power purchase agreements have actually gone smaller and smaller because the price of electricity at the moment is very cheap. But for community solar projects, yeah, we would still easily be looking at a 20-year extendable power purchase arrangement if we can. But yes, there's no constraint on how long we do, unless it's ground mount solar, in which case the planning permissions generally still tend to be around the 25-year mark for those.
Okie doke. Oh, okay, you can hear me, good. Great, so thanks, Tony. Simon, do you want to ask your question? Do you want to unmute yourself, Simon Pardo? Oh, sorry. Okay, he's yeah. Okay, I'll read it out. What is the estimated embedded carbon footprint of a typical domestic solar PV setup, life cycle analysis, etc.? Crikey, that's a tough one. Does anybody know that one off the top of their head? But yeah, I feel confident that, you know, there's a net.
Tell you what, I do know someone that can answer that, and I will email it to them, and perhaps I can then forward it on to you.
Yeah.
I do know
Carbon
someone
Brief
who
have got some.
will work that out.
Yeah, Carbon Brief has got some stuff on low carbon. So if you just Google Carbon Brief solar carbon footprint, you'll find an article, I think, that can answer that question, but essentially they're very low.
Yeah, and also if you're looking at the components, most of the components are recyclable as well. So when they do reach the end of life, can be used again. I did check all the figures, but it was a long time. That was quite a long time ago, so I would hesitate to say. But it's not bad. If that's a very unscientific answer, but
I think because they last such a long time, the initial upfront carbon footprint of getting them, if you like, which I would need to have a look up for the typical solar set, I have to say, because the life cycle is so long, and apart from the initial carbon and apart from the initial kit and installation, they're pretty much carbon negative for the rest of their life. So it is much, yeah, I mean, it's a world away from fossil fuel.
Yeah, looking at this Carbon Brief article, I don't know if you're looking at it, Simon, that Alastair's posted in the chat. Wind, the embedded energy of solar rather is 4% of its total generation. So that's a pretty big win. Okay, right. Well, I see that a few people are leaving us. I think before too many people do, I would like to just ask a couple more polls. First, you know, what do you think we should cover next in our webinars? If you could vote on what you might like to hear more about, we'll target some of these topics. Oh, yeah, okay, it is. Yeah, people are voting, great. Okie doke, I'll give it a minute in total. Okay, I think I might wrap up that. Oh, no, still got some more votes. Okay, well, it's good to see we've got quite a lot of interest in retrofit there, as that is something that we are actively working on. And in fact, we've got some ideas for who we can get to speak on that one, so that's really good. And heat pumps is the other winner there, so that's good to know. So yeah, great, thanks for the input there. And the other thing I wanted to ask was, we do have one more question from Martin Bragg, which I think we should answer. Do you wanna ask that now, Martin?
Okay, yes. So it's a question really about the the future is electric cars, everyone says, but what's the feasibility of actually charging your electric car from your home, from your own PV panels? I mean, is it actually feasible to have free energy? Free energy as in it wouldn't cost anything to charge up your your electric vehicle. Your electric vehicle. I don't know what the physics is in how much energy you get from a PV panel compared to how much energy.
I can take this one. So I think it would depend. It depends a lot on the size of your electric car battery, for starters. The older models, the battery is physically quite chunky, but doesn't have that as much power as some of the newer models, which can take a lot more, but require quite a lot of charge. I think solar panels alone probably cannot sustainably power an electric vehicle at the moment. So solar panels on a house, that is. You probably, if you're thinking, you know, about using both the electric car and using the solar energy for your house, for your household uses, you would find that you wouldn't be able to get both of those things out of the solar panels, but it can certainly power a portion. I think I would need to look up the exact figure, but it would depend. It depends. The trouble is, it depends quite a lot on which car you're buying and on how much you're planning to use it, and on how many solar panels you've got installed. But it could probably it could give you a portion of a charge. So quite often it depends again on the kind of car that you have, but if you have a car that can take a rapid charge, it probably wouldn't have the power to do that, give you the power to do that, but you might be able to charge it for, you know, for a certain number of hours to up to say 20 or 30%, and then drive to your nearest on-street charge points, although for a lot of people on-street charge points rather than charge points at home are the current way of doing things. So yeah, I think there's still some way to go.
It begs the question is where all electricity is going to come from to power all electric vehicles.
Oh, well, we've got there's a lot of work going on around that within the industry and within Ofgem and with the energy networks at the moment about how to create a more flexible energy system, and that's partly what smart meters are for. And we've got this technology demand side response, which is enabling businesses to cut their energy usage at peak times and so on. So I think we are that it's a challenge, but the industry is certainly trying to address that. And yeah, we've got some really good industry leaders kind of bringing that forward.
I can probably shed a little bit of light on this as well, because I have an electric car. I have solar panels. So interestingly, actually, since lockdown, I haven't bought any energy in to charge my car. The big difference has been I've been charging it at daytime in the day. So if you commute and get home, you sort of 5-6 o'clock-ish, you're probably not going to get an awful lot of charge in your car unless you've stored it in a battery and then dumped it back into the car. On an average day in sort of April sort of through till probably this time of year actually, I can quite easily put about 10 kilowatts in the car during the day. 10 kilowatts in my car gets me about 45 miles. On good days you'd obviously get more than that, I think, but it really depends on the time of day when you're charging a car. And as Isobel said, how many miles are you doing? If you're just commuting around, you can run. I haven't brought energy in so far since lockdown.
I was hearing today that the big delivery people, UPS and Amazon, are ordering huge fleets of electric vehicles to do all the deliveries. So, which is fascinating because that actually potentially could lead to a great reduction in the price of electric vehicles in the long term.
Yeah, one of the things a lot of people like Amazon and I do in the winter, they take advantage of is, I think someone may have touched on it then, demand side management, which residentially we see as sort of plunge pricing from people like Octopus Energy, where they drop the tariff right down.
Yeah.
So my home tariff, in the winter, I can't charge my car from my solar panel. I don't have a big enough array. I only got about 3.6 kilowatts. So in the winter, I have to charge my car overnight when energy is a lot cheaper. So it's about 5p a unit. And that's 50 quid. It's about 5,000 miles. I think next time you put 50 quid in your car, it gets you a lot further when it's electric. So
all those wind turbines are turning at night, so that's brilliant. Yeah.
Yeah. I have no choice in the winter because my panels don't perform that well in the winter. But I must admit, in the summer, I'm a little bit annoyed if I have to buy energy in to charge the car. Really.
Well, that's a great point. I mean, I just wanted. I mean, I think there are people here who have panels, and I would be really interested to hear from people like that if we wanted to carry on with this discussion. But if you want to wrap up and go off and have your dinner, or watch some TV or whatever, then that's absolutely fine. So I thought I'd ask you guys, and you can all vote anonymously whether we carry on chatting or whether we wrap up now. We've managed to ask all of the questions. So, I mean, I think there is scope. Perhaps those of you who have rooftop solar, perhaps if you could write to us if you're interested in setting up a discussion group or a support group about your experiences, maybe. So, so there we go. Well, I mean, if we go with the majority, I'm going to end it in 10 seconds. So if you've got a feeling on this, please vote or forever hold your peace. Okay. So we've got a majority saying that we should end it now. So I think I would be happy to do that. But like I say, if there's any follow-up questions that you have, do email us on info@eco.org.uk. And like I say, we are very open to hear what you guys want to talk about. And we're happy to facilitate and discuss all that. So all that remains for me to do is thank our panelists, Isobel, Ollie, Alastair, and Sonya, and thank all of you for attending and asking such great questions. And yeah, that's it. Thank you very much. Goodbye, everyone.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you. Bye.